Hi, Otters. I am so excited to be able to read for you the first two chapters of this year's One Book, One School, and it's called The Year of the Dog by Grace Lynn. It is an award winning novel, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. Here we go, chapters 1 and 2. Here's a picture of the family in the story. Chapter 1, A Sweet New Year. Happy New Year! Dad laughed into the phone. Gong ji, Sinyan Kwai Li. The phone had been ringing all night with relatives calling to wish us a happy Chinese New Year. If we had lived in Taiwan, we would be having a big dinner with all of our relatives, aunts, uncles, and cousins. But since we lived in New Hartford, New York, they called us instead. Yes, Dad said over the phone to Uncle Leo. Happy Year of the Dog. What does it mean when it's the Year of the Dog? I asked. Our kitchen was full of rich, heavy smells because Mom and Lissy were cooking the special Chinese New Year dinner. I was teaching Kiki how to draw a dog for our decorations. I know every Chinese New Year is a different animal, but is something special supposed to happen because it's the Year of the Dog? Yes, Lissy told me, nodding her head so hard that her hair was swinging back and forth. Lissy always thought she knew everything. You know how they say that a dog is a man's best friend? Well, in the Year of the Dog, you find your best friends. That's true, Mom said, her hands mixing speckled brown meat, because dogs are faithful. They say the Year of the Dog is the year for friends and family. But there's more to it than that. The Year of the Dog is also for thinking. Since dogs are also honest and sincere, it's a good year to find yourself. Find myself, Kiki said. Why? I'm not lost. We all laughed, and Mom tried to explain. No, she said, finding yourself means deciding what your values are, what you want to do, that kind of thing. Like deciding what you want to be when you grow up? I asked. Yes, Mom said, nodding her head. Well, Lissy said, I've decided I'm definitely not going to be a chef because I'm tired of cooking. We still have to make the shrimp, the pork, and the vegetables. We're never going to eat. We will, Mom said, and she looked at the clock. Pacey, stop drawing and go fill the New Year tray. I went to the cabinet and took out the New Year tray. We had polished it so much that I could see myself shining in the red and black wood. I also took out a bag of special Chinese New Year candy. It's very important that the New Year tray is filled with candy. If it's full of sweet things, it means your year will be full of sweet things. Kiki hung up our drawings and then came over to help me, although she didn't really help much. All she did was eat the candy. She loved New Year's candy. I don't know why. It isn't real candy like chocolate or lollipops. New Year's candy is sticky, taffy, melon candy. It's like the color of the moon. Kiki kept eating the candy, so I couldn't fill the whole tray. I looked in the cupboard for more, but there wasn't any more. But there were rainbow-colored M&Ms. I love M&Ms. That's real candy, so I filled the rest of the tray with that. When Lissy saw the tray, her mouth made a big O. You can't fill the tray with M&Ms, she told me. It's a Chinese tray. Only Chinese candy is supposed to go in it. But there's not enough Chinese candy to fill it, I told her. We both looked at the tray. We couldn't decide if it was better to have the tray be half empty with only Chinese candy or full with Chinese and American candy. Mom was frying food, so we took the tray to Dad. He scooped up a big handful of Chinese candy and M&Ms, and he ate it. This is way good, he said. We should have both Chinese and American candy for the new year. It's just like us, Chinese American. I think it's going to be a very sweet year. Chapter 2, How to Get Rich. Time to eat, Mom called. In the dining room, there was so much food. There was a whole fried fish, crispy and brown, meat dumplings, fried golden, vegetables shining with oil, steamed buns that looked like puffy clouds, and shrimp in a milky sauce, and pork colored a brilliant ruby pink. The fish eyes stared at me. I didn't like it, so I turned the plate around so it would look at Lissy instead. She turned it back towards me. I turned it again. Finally, we had it look at Kiki. She didn't notice. Everything we eat tonight has a special meaning, Dad said. These vegetables mean wealth. How about the shrimp, I asked. That means wealth too, Dad said. What does the pork mean, Lissy asked. Wealth too, Dad said. Everything means wealth, Lissy said. All we care about is money. Well, don't you want to be rich, Mom asked. Yes, Lissy and I said at the same time. Kiki nodded her head. I want to be a millionaire, I said. I want to be a gazillionaire, Lissy said. Me too, Kiki said. Me too. Well, eat these, Mom told us, passing us the fried dumplings. They say these symbolize gold coins, so if you eat them, you will be rich. I don't know how they're going to make me rich, I said. They don't look like gold coins to me. Maybe that's what gold coins looked like in the olden days, Lissy said. I'm going to eat all of them, Dad teased, and then I'll have all the money and you'll have none. That's not fair, I said, trying to grab some dumplings off his plate. Give me some. I'll sell you one for $1, Dad said. That's how you get rich. The phone rang again, and this time it was Grandpa calling to say Happy New Year. I bet Grandpa ate a lot of these dumplings, Lissy said. Grandpa's rich. Maybe he charged $2 for each dumpling, I joked. Actually, Mom said, Grandpa got rich by doing a job for free. Did I ever tell you the story about Grandpa's first patient? We all shook our heads, and Mom started the story. How Grandpa got rich. When Grandpa graduated from medical school and was officially a doctor, he was so proud. But he had a problem. He had no patience. It seemed like whenever people were sick, they went to somewhere else. No one wanted to go and see Grandpa, a young doctor with no experience. Still, with the help of his parents, he opened a small clinic in the neighborhood. Sometimes his mother would come over saying she had back pains so he could cure her. Sometimes Grandpa would use the stethoscope on himself just to make sure it was still working. But most of the time, Grandpa just sat there alone, like the last dumpling on a plate. This is Grandpa, sitting alone in his clinic. Then, one night, just when the sky began to darken with shadows, there was a frantic banging on the door. A street vendor had been robbed and was badly hurt. His clothes looked like dish rags of blood, and his wife begged for help. Grandpa jumped up and worked hard to save the vendor's life. He worked deep into the night, and he only stopped when the moon hung like a freshly peeled lychee in the sky. Finally, the patient was out of danger. Grandpa left him with his wife in the clinic and told them that he would check on them in the morning. But when Grandpa woke up the next morning and went to check on his patient at the clinic, there was no one there. The bed was made and the room was as clean as an empty rice bowl. Had he dreamed it all? Later, Grandpa found out that his patient was very poor. He and his wife had sneaked away after Grandpa had left because they knew they could not pay him. In fact, right after the accident, the wife had brought the vendor to 2 other doctors before bringing him to Grandpa. But the other doctors had refused to operate because they knew that the vendor couldn't pay. Grandpa, on the other hand, didn't even think about asking for payment. All he had done was hurried to save the vendor's life. So it looked like Grandpa's first patient was going to be free of charge. Grandpa worried because he thought that it didn't look like a good start for his business. He had his family to support, and they were counting on him to make money as a doctor. Was this first patient a sign of his future? But he shouldn't have worried. Like the smell of roast pork, the news of Grandpa's good work spread around the village. People were warmed by the fact that Grandpa cared more for their lives than their money. They stopped seeing their other doctors, and they came to him instead. Soon, he had more patients than he could handle. And this is how Grandpa became rich, Mom finished. Then she looked at the empty table. Aye, you! There's no food left for me. That's chapter 1 and 2 in our book, The Year of the Dog. I can't wait to see what happens next.